Hello, and thanks for tuning in to Stampscaping 101. Taking a break here in this video from stamping just to do a little show and tell time. Stampscapes, of course, is known for the interchangeable nature element, but I was looking over some old designs of mine that I did for a Stamp in the Hand company as well as Stampscapes. And I thought I'd put it into a video format, but these are some designs that I did for a Stamp in the Hand, and these are the first rubber stamp designs that I did. My boss was making a little greeting card, probably birthday card for someone, and she stamped out, I think it was like a reclining figure or something like that, and she asked me if I could kind of whip up some like a column, that she can put on each side of that figure. And the card was probably about, like that big, standard like small card. She just needed a little pop-up, so I said, sure, and I did one, and probably took, I don't know, 15 minutes on it or something like that. And she was thinking about making a rubber stamp out of it, and I said, oh, don't do that. Give me the weekend and I'll do some of their columns, and these are the three that I came up with, so she can kind of pick and choose. They made them into stamps, but they're probably maybe about this big or so, I think, just for card making purposes. I drew them bigger just so I could get the detail in there, but all of these stamp designs have been drawn just kind of on the technical side of things with the technical pens of various nib sizes. They're fairly small just for the detailed purposes. After I did those columns, I think my boss asked me to, if I wanted to do some additional ones to go along with that and kind of make it a little bit of a series. So this is a pediment right here to go on top of the columns, in theory, and I drew these little cherubs and pedestals that they can, be put on top of. Kind of a marble floor. These are all vertical. It goes, the other way, but this angle here is 45 degrees, so you can take this floor and stamp it here and here and again here, so you get this kind of three-dimensional looking corridor, with a little bit of a window inside. And again, this is a really large design, but it was probably about a 60% usage size as far as rubber stamps go, that we made it into lady with the chalice, lady with the branch or something like that. Some other types of sculptures that people can put around those things. Now, I did a lot of different types of designs over the years there. They would just put out I don't know, submission, kind of loose instructions. Does anyone want to come up with something? Could be seasonal or whatnot. And I came up with these little, I don't know, little flourishes that people could stamp out on envelopes or little ribbons, to put around things. And one of the characters that I used to like drawing in high school, I didn't draw these while I was in high school, I drew them in college when I worked for a Stamp in the Hand, but I like drawing Iron Man. He was my favorite character when I used to collect comics, so I was always kind of mimicking the stylizations of that I used to see on the armor, and I just applied it to these little, I don't know, dingbats or whatever, that people could put on things. These are all more individual, and we call them like foil ribbon, foil heart with shadow, I think, or something like that. But oh, those were pretty fun. And then started getting into seasonal things. I think there was a call for kind of Christmas designs. I don't know why I have the grape branch, but string of lights, string of stars, and it was kind of like one of those little tinsely garlands that had those foil stars on it that I did. And, you know, in keeping with that theme, I did this little frame, you know, little people can use it as a gift tag or whatever. And I'm not going to talk about every one of these, it'll take forever, but just miscellaneous designs, camera and film. Boy, wouldn't that be kind of obsolete now? I don't know, frog legs. Okay, now this is getting into kind of the precursor to Stampscapes. I did these rocks, and look at these waves here, super stylized waves, but these rocks right here, and grass. I don't know if we made these all into designs, but I don't know, that was one set. I don't recall what I did that for. Maybe it was just as little flourishes around some other things. This design right here was I think we called it ornaments and strings or something like string and ornaments or something like that. But we sold a ton of these ones, and it's because I went into Pasadena one year, and that's when the first time I saw these little ornaments that they hung up from you know, with, like using fishing line, and had these ribbons kind of interspersed throughout that, kind of making a cool little display in these boutique stores that were really dressed up for the season. Christmas kind of a gift tag frame, birthday presents, birthday kind of designs. I don't know how I did that one. It's kind of a fun little thing. Ornaments, based on some ornaments that I had purchased in the store or something like that. And we were selling so many of those ornament streamers that I did more. Kind of heart one for Valentine's Day, I guess. Kind of miscellaneous items. We had all kinds of things at Stamps, a Stamp of the Hand company, so I just did some balls, you know, different things that people might need. Birthday streamers and garlands, rockets for, I don't know, 4th of July or New Year's. Playing around with some different textural looks right here. We did a lot of kind of larger eraser carving types of looks at a Stamp in the Hand. They had some really great artists doing that type of work, including the owner. So I did these ones right here. At the time we were coloring just about everything with Marvy brush markers. So you'd have like solid patterning on here, and you would color them up, you know, using various colors, as opposed to like outline stamps where you'd stamp it and then color in. You would just do the whole thing in color. So that's why the design has to be more kind of blockish looking. More hearts. Easter, must have been around Easter time or something. Same theme, kind of, you know, streamers and things like that. Chinese New Year with the dragon and rooster. Dragon kites. Firecrackers. And then, I don't know, just I did a space series. Kind of, you know, getting into modular stamping a little bit, exploring it a little more. Little individual ornaments. I was kind of experimenting around with pattern too, so pattern and texture at that time. Origami, little things right here. Again, with the patterning on there. Okay, now this was kind of a significant little grouping. I wouldn't call it a series, but this is the Halloween grouping that I did for them. But the image that was fairly significant was the moon and cloud right here. Those were to be used in conjunction with one another. A lot of the moon types of elements and sky elements at that time were kind of positive things. They weren't the light source within a scene. They would be, like a drawing of a moon with the textures on it, and if you stamped it up in the sky, it would be the darkest thing. So what I wanted to do was add the kind of the texture and darkness around the moon, and hopefully that moon would stand out as a light source. So I did that one, and if you just stamp that, alone on a card, you'd have all this kind of space around it that needed to be addressed. And that's when I drew this cloud right here as an accompaniment to that image. So you can fill in to the edge of the thing with some additional texture. But anyways, you can see it's kind of some rain patterning and, little graveyardy types of things here. Some grass textures to fill in the area. Party types of birthday types of things, birthday balloons, little birthday garlands, kind of, rendered differently, more of the solids again, where you can do different gradations in the balloons themselves with the Marvy brush markers, and, to give kind of a bold look. So, anyways, kind of chocolate eggs on little streamers right here. I was going nuts with that type of idea. Okay, now kind of going along the lines with scenic stamping and Stampscapes. We were selling a lot of the cloud with moon and texture, so I came up with this second batch of, as you can see, this was all drawn on one board here. I was a student, so I always try to make use of my hardboard panels that I was drawing on at the time, but kind of going with that negative reversed out effect, and you can see the kind of the dot pattern around this where we can kind of fill in, but more of the reverse types of sky figures in this batch right here, and kind of getting into a little bit of the more of the landscape components here. We have kind of snowy trees and mountains like this, so you can see where things kind of peter off at the ends, where they can kind of blend in with one another in theory. Little mountains right here. So all fairly small designs, I think kind of conservative in size. Usually, not that modular stamping didn't exist back then, but you didn't really see too many whole lines being conceived for that idea. But anyways, you have these kind of textural types of sky elements, but again, if you just stamp those up somewhere, they're going to be the darkest thing unless you darken the area around it, and thus was born the field of sky, which is just a bunch of dots. So in theory, you can just take that and fill in the area around those types of elements with, I was thinking, pattern, okay? But as it turns out, I used it more as a tool to really code and fill in the area. So it was almost used more like a kind of rubber stamp brush or something like that than to do individual impressions of it around these types of images. So we use that quite a lot. Okay, and then that series really started taking off, and I drew more of the elements. You notice we're getting kind of bigger, and these stamp designs right here were really, a lot more of them were used in larger sizes. There's a bunch of sky figures right here, more real kind of billowy looking, types right here. And I think we came up with most of these in two different sizes because we were starting to think in terms of the scale and having things in the distance. So, you know, the line, while these designs are still really early into the concept, you know, they're really starting to mature as kind of a whole grouping or a whole, I don't know the word I'm looking for is, but kind of a, I'll think of it, but kind of something more cohesive in terms of a series, you know, where things are modular. Okay, you have a larger version of that smaller lake island here. Getting into kind of water patterns here. You know, to fill in kind of water areas. Okay, now going back to those columns, that first series of kind of Greco-Roman designs that I did, I wanted to bring that modular aspect into the that Greco-Roman series, so I drew more of the more imagery that can blend with those ones. Now this is the hardest set that I've ever drawn because I wasn't thinking about it so much as being like a whole system. I guess that's the word I was looking for before, a whole system of design, so I had to kind of go back and have the, you know, the correct proportions that would fit the previous designs that weren't designed around this concept, but came up with a lot more designs, different entablatures, arches, and whatnot, little decorative panels that, you know, flipped various ways, can kind of extend the usage range of the imagery. So this one really matured here, and in all of these designs right here, somewhere in the patterning, you'll see my initials kind of hidden into the textures. So, like for example, let me see if I can get this. Look at this one right here. You see a K and an N. There's 1992. I drew this in 1992. I don't know, just as a little aside there. So anyway, that was my designs for a Stamp in the Hand company. Some really fun years of working there. And then when I graduated, I wasn't really planning on, you know, going into rubber stamping or something like that, but I know that series, I was still teaching, I was starting to teach classes at the time using the nature landscape stuff, because the other demonstration artists for them at conventions just said, hey, you know, we don't know what you want to do with these nature components. You do them. You design them, you do them. So I started using them. But then I graduated, and those ones were, you know, that kind of that modular idea is something that I wanted to explore more and really get into it. And a few years, I don't know, maybe a couple years after graduating from college, I started working on more designs here. You know, just the other things that I kind of felt like I wanted to explore in terms of little embellishments, in terms of creatures to go into the scenes, different types of foliage, you know, from pines to deciduous to bare ones, waterfalls, working in scale. Here's the reeds large. It's upside down here, but you know, having more things like, you know, just not in terms of thinking side-by-side applications, but now I'm thinking about dimension and scale and perspective and having things close, you know, in addition to far. Here's kind of a little bit of a maturing of the sky elements here. You know, here's that lightning, but incorporating more of a cloud with it. Milky Way stamp right here, and bringing a lot more solids into it, and just trying to experiment around with how much you know, do you have the edges of it kind of peter out, you know, for the blending purpose. Lakeside Cove, that's probably the stamp that I've used the most over the years in terms of the main subject matter of a scene. More waterfalls, kind of distant canyons here. At some point in time I discontinued these two right here because just in terms of blending, and I didn't like how I would stamp out this canyon right here, and then I wouldn't have, if it was on a larger piece of paper, I wouldn't have something to really fill in around the edges right here that looked the way I really wanted it to. Rocks. These images right here came out about like 1 inch across, and they're little floral textures. We reduced them down quite a bit. Tonal applicator, used similar to the field of sky, except that this time around I made it kind of pointed so I can get into smaller areas when I was filling in and toning in with color. Paths and things like that. We had cabins and things like that, but I wanted something to kind of visually lead the eye into the scene at this point in time. Now I'm thinking about right and left side of the cards, scenes, and whatnot. So we started, you know, I started thinking about things like that. Lakeside cabin. I wasn't even going to release this lake. So not all of these designs have been released. I wasn't going to release the Lakeside cabin just because I drew the trees a little bit differently than everything else in the line. And the rendering of the cabin was a little bit different as well. You can see those lines going across it, but that ended up being probably one of the most popular designs in the entire line. I don't know, it still is. So I guess I'm glad I released it. Structures. I needed more little types of people, so here's a board full of little animals and creatures. This pine rose stamp was one that I needed for backgrounds. I always had, you know, a lot of things like this, structures with some trees, but I wanted to be able to stack and add more depth to a scene, so that's why this stamp came out. I've used that a lot as well. Going into kind of a different area, I did some tropical designs. This stamp right here is really huge. It's the Seaside Cove, and it took me a while to kind of figure it out. I wanted these waves in here, but how do you end it right here was the question. Do you just have it kind of crashing on shore with nothing there? And it didn't look right to me, but until I kind of added these rocks on the side here, it didn't come together until that point. Then everything kind of came together in the end. There's a stamp that's large, and I don't know. At the time, I think it was probably the largest stamp out there in the industry, but we have a smaller version of it now. More imagery, suns and moons, and thinking about the reverse kind of design of, this one's kind of upside down right here, but it's like a plume of, I don't know, light. This one's a kind of the Northern Lights type of thing right here. More sky imagery. I love sky imagery and deep space images, so I would do things like this nebula here. Different tonal applicators, not really used like the other ones, you know, to fill in vast areas of tone, but it's just to achieve more texture. And I have 1 or 2 videos that I've used, I think this one in. But anyways, what you'd have are things like these images here, like this crepuscular rays with these light rays coming out, or this sun, you know, these rays. And the theory was that if you do an image like this and you stamp it out, you might have space, you know, going around the image, and if you wanted to carry that that ray out to the edge of the card, I wanted to, you know, use something like this that has these rays in it you know, where you could stamp it out around the perimeter of these, for the most part, sky images to carry that idea out to the edge of the page, the idea meaning the light rays. Okay, and that came out with the tropical design. That little plume of light could be used on top of this volcano. And instead of using kind of deciduous or the evergreen type of tree, you know, of course, this is just replacing those types of trees with the palm tree, you know, lending itself to a, you know, different environment. More filler stamps like this. Okay, this series right here kind of started getting into a little bit more texture. I wanted to explore texture. Everything in the past has been kind of like really smooth gradations, and I wanted to introduce more texture into the images. And you know, this is really textural right here. This grass texture. I was starting to use a lot of moons in the past, but it's always been like kind of like a smaller design in the scene, and I wanted to create something with more drama, so I drew a really large moon, or larger moons, to be used in the background for scale and drama. And here's some different boards right here. You can see my copies. We used to do our paste ups for the plates using you know, just copies. Now it's all done digitally with scanners and computers, but anyways, you can see my notations here to myself. 92%, that's probably the size that it ended up being used at for the rubber stamp image. But anyways, I like to draw out the size of image stamps that they were going to be, and then what I'd do is I'd reverse, I'd shrink them down for that purpose. But yeah, just simply more texture being utilized now in this series. Oak branch, drawn really huge so I can get the details in the leaves right here. But it was probably, this is probably about a 200%, I don't know, might even say on here, 53%, so close, you know, so you have to reduce it down by that much. Okay, more texture. Looks like my mountain came off right here. I glued that down on this board, but with rubber cement. But a lot more texture in waterfalls. A lot of texture. This thing goes on here, but kind of cracked earth. And sky imagery. I love deep space, like I said, so I did this. This took forever, this spiral galaxy. And this was kind of inspired from one of those first photographs that were coming back from the Hubble telescope that I really liked. So, anyway, those were kind of some of the first probably few years of Stampscapes, and flip through this last one, try to get through here a little bit faster. Different elements, lighthouse, some things good to go along the shoreline here, more trees, kind of different types of rows of trees. I wanted to do more of this kind of the oak type of tree, lefts and rights, different textures, filler stems like this little pebbly pattern, autumn series. I took a hike through some aspens one time, so I wanted to do these aspen trees here. I kind of picture them being colored in kind of various shades of yellow and gold. I don't know, when I was walking through a grove of those one time out in, I think it was Colorado, in Estes Park, I felt like I pictured it being like a I don't know, walking through like living stained glass or something like that with them backlit. It was really amazing. So anyways, that kind of inspired the Autumn series. Thinking about Autumn series, you know, you can draw them all kind of to be colored in those tones, but it took a while for me to kind of figure out that it really needed some darker, kind of more deciduous evergreen trees to draw on there, because you want a little bit of contrast between those fall types of trees and the area around it. Otherwise it would look like just a blob of color if you didn't have that type of more solid, darker tree in there. More of the deciduous down here, and this is a loon right here. I had to draw it really big. This is a pretty big loon right here, but you know, in order to get that kind of patterning down there, you have to draw it big and reduce it down for, you know, the purpose of the rubber stamp. And I guess that's about it. These are just copies. I don't have the most recent designs in there, but that's kind of a history of kind of where that modular nature system kind of came from, looking back at those really early designs. So anyways, that's the history of it right there, you know, the kind of older history and whatnot of I don't know, the drawings and designs and concepts. So anyway, thanks for watching the video, and hope you enjoyed it.